Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. Today is Wednesday, February 16th, 2022. Let's get to the docket. First, a former police officer testifies in his own defense in the death of George Floyd. Second, a civil settlement in the Sandy Hook trial. It's going to make you scratch your head, I think. Ahmaud Arbery, well, that case is going to trial again, and the defendants admit their mistakes that they made in the state case. A happy ending to a missing child story, finally. Politics is getting a little crazy down there in Kentucky. And then our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Crime Talk. My name is Scott Reich. Let's get straight to the docket for February 16th, 2022. First, former officer testifies in his own defense. Former Minneapolis police officer Tou Thao testified Wednesday that he realized George Floyd's pleas that he couldn't breathe were becoming weaker, but still did not realize Floyd was in danger even as bystanders became increasingly vocal. Now, Tou is one of the three former officers charged in federal court with violating Floyd's constitutional rights when Officer Derek Chauvin pressed his knee into Floyd's neck. Now, under cross-examination, the prosecutors asked Tou, and he said he did not relay any of the onlookers' concerns about Floyd's well-being to the other officers. He said he was relying on them to care for Floyd's medical needs while he controlled the crowd and traffic, and that he didn't think Chauvin's knee was pressing on Floyd's trachea. Now, yesterday, Tou also testified that when he and Chauvin arrived, the other two officers, Koenig and Lane, were struggling with Floyd. Tou said he took a position on the roadway to serve as a human traffic cone to keep cars away from the officers. Now, Tou, Koenig, and Lane are all accused of depriving Floyd of medical care. Koenig and Tou are also accused of failing to intervene to stop the May 25th, 2020 killing of Floyd. Now, Tou's attorney, Robert Paul, asked Tou whether he saw any of the officers roll Floyd over and perform CPR. He said he did not and presumed that meant Floyd was breathing. Tou later testified that he did not know there was anything seriously wrong with Floyd even as the ambulance took him away. The prosecution noted that the video shows that Tou looking at the officers much of the time and suggested that bystanders in traffic were not big threats. Tou acknowledged under cross-examination that he did nothing to provide medical care to Floyd or intervene to stop Chauvin, even after it appeared to him that Floyd was no longer resisting. Now, prosecutors rested their case Monday after calling to the stand doctors, police officers, and bystanders to build the argument that the officers should have intervened to stop Chauvin and that they violated their training by not rolling Floyd onto the side so that he could breathe or to give him CPR. Defense attorneys are attempting to show that the Minneapolis Police Department providing inadequate training and taught cadets to obey their supervisors. Chauvin, who was convicted of the state murder and manslaughter charges last year, was the most senior officer on the scene and seriously took charge of the situation. But, Tou has a little more experience than the other two officers who had literally been on the job for about a week. This is going to be an interesting verdict, ladies and gentlemen. And you really have a situation where, are they as responsible as Derek Chauvin? I mean, Derek Chauvin pled guilty to the civil rights violations and obviously has been found guilty in the state court of the homicide of George Floyd. Now, whatever you say about George Floyd, the matter of fact is he's dead. Things should have been handled differently, but it's a lot easier to look back, hindsight 2020, and what should have been done versus the scenario that was taking place at the time. Oh yeah, that's right. The jury rejected that at the trial. So we'll see what the jury does in this case. We'll keep you updated. Next on the docket, Sandy Hook. That's right. Family of the victims of the Sandy Hook massacre reached a settlement with Remington Arms Company, the manufacturer of the rifle used in the 2012 mass shooting. Now, the insurers of the rifle company agreed to pay the full coverage available, which was $73 million. The families say that they can also now make thousands of pages of internal company documents public, which they prove Remington's wrongdoing. One of the lawyers behind the family's legal strategy to pierce that immunity said that the settlement would send a message for the gun industry to stop recklessly marketing all guns to all people for all uses, and instead ask how marketing can lower risk rather than court it. Now, for the insurance and banking industry, it is a time to recognize that financial costs of underwriting companies that elevate profit by elevating risk could be risky. The attorneys went on and said, our hope is that the victory will be the first boulder in the avalanche that forces change. The settlement comes after more than half a decade of bitterly contested litigation. A judge initially dismissed the family's complaint in 2016, but their lawsuit was revived on appeal, leading to a Supreme Court battle there in the state. Now, normally gun manufacturers have immunity. There's federal legislation that says you cannot be held responsible as a gun manufacturer if somebody uses in a criminal act. I mean, it makes sense. We don't hold Ford accountable or Chevy accountable when somebody drives through a crowd of people and saying, you marketed your car in such a way that this was a manly truck and that you could do anything and drive anywhere. Because that's really what they were saying was the marketing, that this gun made you powerful and manly, and therefore that led to the shooting. Obviously, it was a tragedy that took place at Sandy Hook. It never should have happened, and the people that should be held responsible will never be held responsible in a court of law. But the gun manufacturer, that's kind of a little bit of a stretch. And normally those insurance companies don't pay out $73 million. But maybe we'll get to see these documents will be released, and maybe it'll change my mind. I'm just a little surprised by it. That's all. Next in the docket, Ahmaud Arbery. Well, that federal civil rights violation case is proceeding, and prosecution witnesses retook the stand today in the federal trial of 3 white men who had previously been convicted of killing Ahmaud Arbery in 2020. On the first day of testimony, the jury heard from neighbors of the defendants who described how the shooting of the 25-year-old black man shocked them. They also watched graphic cell phone video and saw crime scene photos of Arbery's bloody body before hearing excerpts of interviews the defendants gave to the police. Prosecutors said in opening statements that the evidence will show each defendant had a history of making racist comments. Defense attorneys said there's no excuse for their client's use of the slurs, but insisted that their deadly pursuit of Arberry was motivated by an earnest, though erroneous, suspicion that Arberry had committed crimes. Why is that interesting? Well, I told you way back when this case came around and everybody said this was going to be a citizen's arrest. They were going to stop Mr. Arberry for a citizen's arrest. And I said, that dog don't hunt. We read the statute. We read the jury instruction, and it said it's not going to be applicable, and it wasn't. But the defense hung their hat on that. At least now they're conceding that their hunch that Mr. Arberry had done anything wrong was erroneous. Makes a little more sense. Don't double down on something that didn't work in trial. Still think they're going to get sentenced, but we'll see. We'll give them the presumption of innocence in this trial. The jury also heard from FBI analyst Amy Vaughn, who went through evidence from the defendant's text messages and social media posts, once again in regards to racial slurs that all of the men had used. Hence the reason they're going for a civil rights violation, that they believe they pursued Mr. Arberry because of his race. Next on the docket, finally, a happy ending to a missing child. After more than 2 years, police say they found a missing 6-year-old girl in her grandfather's home in Sagittarius, New York. Officers discovered Paisley Schultes under the staircase with her non-custodial mother, Kimberly Cooper. The child went missing on July 13th, 2019, when she was only 4 years old. She was believed to be with Cooper and the non-custodial father, Kurt Schultes Jr. Police said they heard the child was hidden at the home at 35 Fawn Road and executed a search warrant Monday night. The grandfather, Kirk Schultes Sr., denied knowing the whereabouts of the granddaughter and claimed he had not seen her since the disappearance in 2019. Now, the detective noticed that the steps at the home were oddly placed, so he checked out the wooden steps with the flashlight. He spotted what seemed to be a blanket and called for backup. Officers removed the steps and found Paisley and Kimberly Cooper inside. Paramedics checked Paisley and reported that she was in good health. They reunited the 6-year-old with her legal guardian and sister. Cooper now faces a felony count of custodial interference and misdemeanor endangerment regarding the welfare of a child. Kirk Schultes Jr. and Sr. both face the same charges. Cooper and Schultes Men were arraigned at the Sagittarius Justice Court. They retained private counsel, and they are due back in court on Tuesday of next week. The investigation is ongoing. Not sure why they're not charging that as a felony kidnapping, but maybe more charges will be forthcoming. We've always said politics was a little crazy. Well, I think this proves it. A Louisville, Kentucky council candidate, Twinted Brown, allegedly attempted to kill mayoral candidate Democrat Craig Greenberg in his campaign headquarters. Now, Brown is 21, also faces 4 counts of wanton endangerment, and police said Brown appears to have acted alone, and the motive remains under investigation. Greenberg said that he was at his campaign headquarters with 4 colleagues when a man appeared at the doorway and began firing multiple rounds. When we greeted him, he pulled out a gun, aimed it directly at him, Mr. Greenberg, and began shooting. Despite one bullet coming so close that it grazed Mr. Greenberg's sweater, no one was physically harmed. Brown was found a half-mile away from the scene, carrying a loaded 9mm magazine in his pant pocket. He also had a drawstring bag with a handgun and additional handgun magazines, according to the arrest reports. Now, Brown is a social justice advocate running as an independent for the council and has campaigned with a slate of candidates opposing projects that they say will worsen gentrification in the city. And Democrat Craig Greenberg has promoted his experience at the center of the city's revitalization efforts and helped draft legislation promoting these developments in Louisville's predominantly black West Side. Brown is a former intern and editorial columnist for the Courier-Journal and has been active on social media, tweeting on social justice issues. In one recent post, Brown showed the faces of several young black children killed by gun violence in Louisville, writing, "This is our reality. All these kids are gone." Brown also wrote in the post on social media, "Gun violence reveals the interconnected nature of our reality. What affects one directly affects all indirectly, especially in our segregated conditions." Now, Brown disappeared for about 2 weeks last summer. After he was found safe, his parents issued a statement asking for patience and privacy while they attended to Mr. Brown's physical, mental, and spiritual needs. Now, Greenberg has built a big lead in a crowded race to succeed the outgoing mayor, Greg Fisher, in the Democrat-leaning city. Now, Greenberg, a Harvard-educated lawyer, helped start Louisville's based 21C Museum Hotels, building the company to more than 1,100 employees. The company is credited with helping revive the Main Street in downtown Louisville and other urban neighborhoods across the country. Wow. I know some people don't like gentrification. Let's not make a area nicer, cleaner, better. Yes, I get it's expensive, and people oftentimes are forced out. We have a lot of that going on here in Denver. But guess what? The remedy is you go buy the property so you can keep it the way you want. You can't go around trying to harm people by shooting them. Bottom line. Please go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up for a background subscription service. You'll be happy you did. If there's anyone out there you were ever curious about what was in their background, now is the time to do it. If you're going to get involved with somebody, now is the time to do it. When you go to crimetalksearch.com, you put in the name, literally millions of public records are searched, and a report is generated. And it's going to give you a report. If they have multiple social media accounts, you're going to find it. If they have multiple phone numbers, multiple email addresses, it's going to be found. And more importantly, you're going to get information regarding criminal history. Hopefully the person you're searching has none whatsoever. But if it's there, it's going to be found. You're going to get everything you'd want to know, whether you're going into business or whether you're going into a personal relationship. You're going to be able to find out the information you want to know. So go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up today. You'll be happy you did. Next on the docket, our dumb criminal of the day. Now, it is alleged that a highly intoxicated woman from New York was barred from boarding a plane at the Orlando International Airport and then led police on a chase through the terminals on a motorized suitcase. Officers allegedly approached Chelsea Alston after many complaints of her drunken behavior and told her she cannot board the plane. Alston replied, "I'm not intoxicated. Suck my various appendages." Now, body cam footage shows 32-year-old Alston then fleeing on her suitcase with a motorized attachment and being chased by an officer on a bike at a low-speed pursuit. Alston was eventually arrested, but not before battering the officer and causing more than $1,000 in damage to his patrol car, according to police records. If convicted, she now faces up to 5 years in prison simply because she had a little too much to drink before she was getting on the plane and then going on a low-speed chase on a motorized suitcase and then assaulting the officer and destroying the police car, damaging it. Miss Alston, you are a dumb criminal contestant of the day. You have earned it. Congratulations. I think you better get used to taking Greyhound. Not going to be flying much anytime soon. All right, thanks for watching. That's all we have for you today. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.